Hey everyone, it's Catching Tease here. Welcome to my channel where today I want to talk about the impact that Dreamcatcher has had on the girl group space because no one else is doing it and I gotta pull for my girls. I feel like there's a lot of people who joined K-pop in the fourth generation and don't realize that girl group concepts weren't always as diverse as they are now, and there are specific groups that kind of deserve credit for that. A lot of people talk about groups like FX in that regard, and rightfully so, but I feel like a lot of Nugu groups get snubbed credit for the creativity that they bring into the industry, and that larger companies usually steal from. There are a few of those Nugu groups I could have made this video about, but Dreamcatcher is the one that I'm most familiar with and the one that I feel has had the most tangible and noticeable impact on the industry as a whole, not just as like a trend or a single facet. So let's get into how Dreamcatcher revolutionized the girl group landscape. Alright, so we're starting with the obvious one here. If you're a newer K-pop fan, you might be thinking, so what, the rock sound isn't anything new, and in 2023, you would be absolutely right, and that is because of Dreamcatcher. If we take a trip back to 2016, you would be hard-pressed to find any trace of rock music in K-pop. You see, Korea is a very conservative country, which means that they're very hesitant to any sort of change in their entertainment that doesn't take a turn for the digestible and cookie cutter. Combine that with the fact that K-pop hadn't gone global enough for fans from other countries to really have an influence on the industry, and that gives you a pretty good idea of why no one in the industry had ever touched the rock genre. Sure, there may have been some smaller bands that worked with it, but a K-pop group that dances, let alone a girl group? No, unheard of. Moving into 2017, Dreamcatcher decided to change that, and the way that they went about it is what cemented them as the staple that they are today. The complete 180 from their previous image as cute little minx to the dark Dreamcatcher was a massive shock to many, and they bought into the rock sound and did everything short of putting screamo into their music to really shock anyone who listened to them and find a whole market of people who for the first time felt seen. Thus, the community of Dreamcatcher fans were incredibly dedicated, and a dedicated community spreads the word to other people. So what? Lots of groups have dedicated fan bases that spread the word. The difference here is that Dreamcatcher has a sound that appeals to a lot of people that normally wouldn't touch K-pop with a 1,000-foot pole. Now, rock fans who were closeted K-pop fans could tell their other rock fan friends about this group because Dreamcatcher was cool and made music that was so in their niche and so good that they almost couldn't turn it down just because of a language barrier. Personal side note here, I literally, to this day, use Dreamcatcher as a way to subvert expectations of non-K-pop fans. K-pop is still kind of my dirty little secret to people that I'm not super close with, so on the off chance that I accidentally expose myself to someone, my planned response is, okay, but my area of K-pop is a group that does rock music with a horror concept. Look up Dreamcatcher, you won't regret it. I still think Dreamcatcher is one of the best ways to create unlikely K-pop fans because of how quickly and resolutely they shatter the typical preconceived notion that K-pop is all happy-go-lucky bubblegum pop. So, Dreamcatcher has a niche audience, but how did they get them to stick around for 7 years? The biggest thing to note here is how they stuck with their sound. A lot of Nugu groups try new things with music, but not a lot of them stick with the sound that they picked out at debut. By continuing to do rock music, they built a solid brand and became known as that one rock K-pop girl group, to people who weren't even all that familiar with them. At the same time, they didn't allow their sound to stagnate, and in true K-pop fashion, blended their sound with other genres. Yes, they are primarily a rock group, but everyone knows that they can do more because we've seen them do more, with influence from jazz, EDM, Latin, and probably more that I can't think of off the top of my head. Also, by sticking to their guns, Dreamcatcher showed their fans that they're also just as loyal, strengthening that bond and that trust. That solid brand and solid fan base is what gave them the longevity that most girl groups struggle to find. Okay, so how does this impact the industry as a whole? Well, in doing this type of sound and being successful, it reinforced to other girl groups that their music doesn't have to be the typical genres found in K-pop. You can exist outside of blaring EDM or bubblegum pop and still make a profit. I don't think it's a mistake that the use of actual instruments like guitars and drums became way more popular as Dreamcatcher began rising in popularity. And that whole punk rock trend that went through K-pop, I can guarantee that would not have happened if Dreamcatcher hadn't thrown rock into the industry years ago and given people time to warm up to the sound. If writers and producers have no proof that a new sound will be profitable, 99% of them won't try it out. Dreamcatcher was that proof, so companies were willing to go for it at least halfway. I honestly don't think it's possible to overstate their impact within K-pop sonically, considering that they pretty much single-handedly brought in an entire genre, and said genre continues to grow today. Now, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that Dreamcatcher was the first group to do a horror concept. They weren't. However, I feel like they were the first group to do it both well and consistently. A lot of the horror concepts we had seen up to that point were sort of one-off things that groups did to change up their concepts and shock people. And while yes, that worked, it wasn't something that a lot of groups did, and it wasn't their entire identity. Even then, only a few were able to pull it off effectively and usually mixed it with another concept. Take Red Velvet's Russian Roulette, for example. Yes, it can be considered horror, but it has too much of a quirky vibe to truly be authentic to the horror genre. However, take a look at their next comeback, Peekaboo. It's much more true to the horror concept, and oh look! It was 9 months after Dreamcatcher debuted. Now, I'm not saying that Dreamcatcher is the sole reason for Peekaboo's concept. That would be very stupid. I am aware that SM usually plans comebacks far in advance. However, the 9-month time difference is definitely long enough for Dreamcatcher to have possibly slightly influenced the creative team, especially the music video director, while they were planning the specifics of it. This is just my little theory though, so take it or leave it. As far as I know, Dreamcatcher was the first group to do a full-on horror concept long-term, and their consistent sustainability was enough to inspire a lot of groups in 4th gen to do more. After all, if Minx could turn into Dreamcatcher and be one of the very few 3rd-gen girl groups to re-sign their contracts after 7 years, why couldn't more Nugu groups do the same? So I think the first 2 sections are pretty obvious contributions that almost anyone who looked at Dreamcatcher could tell you about. However, I think this is their most significant contribution to K-pop as a whole, and not many people recognize it. Dreamcatcher pioneered the idea of international marketing. And when I say international marketing here, no, I don't just mean general marketing internationally. After all, Gangnam Style had already happened, and BTS was starting to hit their stride internationally by the time that Dreamcatcher debuted. No, I mean the idea of flat out ignoring the domestic market and deliberately setting sights on overseas. Again, as far as I'm aware, no one had ever really done this. I mean, how many groups before 2017 had gone on a world tour in the same year that they debuted? Not many, and if there are some, I'm willing to bet that they were from a big 3 company. I'm saying it here now. Dreamcatcher walked so groups like Ateez could sprint. Thank you, Queens, for being the gateway for my alts. No, but really, Dreamcatcher showed other groups, especially Nugu ones, that there was an entire other market out there with totally different interests that was pretty much untapped. This meant that if you had a really cool idea for a concept that you didn't think the Korean public would like, say like rock horror or pirate EDM, you could still debut with it. You just had to be smart by marketing and touring internationally. Follow Dreamcatcher's blueprint, and it was now possible, even for groups without Big 3 backing. Okay, so this isn't about Dreamcatcher as a whole, but I just needed to talk about Dami and how I personally think she's had a huge impact on rappers. So, rappers with deep voices, they're like everywhere in K-pop now, right? You can probably guess what I'm about to say. Not always the case, and Dami has influenced this, especially in the girl group sphere. Yes, deep-voiced rappers have always existed in K-pop, but most of them were male, there weren't a ton of them, and people didn't go feral for them the way that they do now. Enter Dami, specifically her vocal rap that went viral. Yeah, that one. I don't think it's a coincidence that we're starting to see a lot more deep-voiced female rappers or even deep-voiced female singers in the industry after Dami emerged, and I am here for it. To wrap this all up, I just wanted to provide a list of groups that I think have been influenced by Dreamcatcher in at least one way. So if you're an insomnia and you haven't checked out some of these groups, I would highly encourage you to. Okay, so first up, Pink Fantasy. I mean, it doesn't get much more obvious than this. Pink Fantasy has both the horror concept and the rock sound from Dreamcatcher. I can't say much about their marketing because I don't follow them closely, but I think this connection is kind of just a no-brainer. Pixy. This one is also kind of a duh. Though they've started slightly moving in a bit of a different direction, their original debut concept just violently screamed Dreamcatcher to me. I also think a lot of their title track structures mirror Dreamcatcher's. I mean, Wings is almost a direct mirror of Scream's structure, with the way that the pre-chorus starts pretty and gradually gets more intense to build to a drop, and then the second chorus is cut in half to make way for a big dance break. Also, they have a deep-voiced rapper. They're my personal favorite of the list, so check them out if you haven't. Their choreography is actually insane. Purple Kiss. They also debuted with a dark concept, and they've really made it their own with a softer, more eerie tone to their music rather than the in-your-face tone of Dreamcatcher. But still, a lot of their visuals take inspiration from Dreamcatcher. I mean, did you see Sweet Juice? I found a Twitter thread that pointed out all of the similarities between Dreamcatcher's music videos and Sweet Juice's music video, and it's crazy awesome. I will link it down below if I can find it again. If you're curious, I'd recommend you check it out. They're another one of my favorites on the list, so give them a listen. Primrose. This duo is incredibly new to the scene and really small, but a lot of their debut music video is reminiscent of Deja Vu's in my head, just like it kind of has the vibe of Scream a little bit more. I'm interested to see where they go from here and if they stick with it, but I think they definitely belong on this list with what they've put out so far. Dreamnote. I mean, they basically did the same flip as Minx to Dreamcatcher when they released Ghost. Please check out Ghost. Oh my god, it's so underhyped. Like, if you told me that Ghost was a Dreamcatcher reject that Dreamnote got a hold of and went, nah, why not? I would 100% believe you. They're finally having a comeback soon, so I really hope that they stick with this sound because I was obsessed with Ghost for the longest time. Everglow. Some of you might be scratching your heads at this one. This one isn't an influence of sound or concept. No, this one is all marketing. I think a lot of international fans forget, but Everglow is really not well received domestically, mostly because they're from a Chinese company. Like, Dun Dun has over 274 million views on YouTube and 0 wins. 0 music show wins. They only have 2 music show wins overall, the first of which was questionable because of some possible rigging to keep Dreamcatcher from winning. This is not me accusing Everglow of anything. Please play nice forevers and insomnias. And Everglow has still won no major awards. The only reason they're still kicking, even though we've gotten close to disbandment a couple of times, is because they followed Dreamcatcher's model and just went overseas. Please, dear God, give them a comeback. I need it. Idol. This one has less to do with creative influence and more with public perception. I have no doubt that Soyeon would do what Soyeon wants to do, but I don't think people would have been ready for Oh My God to happen because, whew, that music video is something. Basically, Scream walked so Oh My God could fly, baby. Basically, TLDR, point is, Dreamcatcher has influenced a ton of groups both directly and indirectly, and I expect to see that snowball more and more as groups diversify their concepts and their sounds and their strategies. So that's what I have for how Dreamcatcher paved the way for a lot of groups within the K-pop industry. I hope this video gets some people thinking about the role that not just Dreamcatcher, but a lot of new groups play in driving K-pop forward creatively. It's a shame that they get so little recognition for the massive contributions that some of them make, so this is me trying to give Dreamcatcher in particular a little boost and help people realize how groundbreaking of a group they really are. But that does it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. If you have any thoughts about this topic, please leave them in the comments below. I'm actually really interested in seeing what other people think about this. Do you agree with me? Disagree? Are there any other groups that you feel are just as or even more groundbreaking than Dreamcatcher? Or do you have any groups that you would like to add to my Dreamcatcher adjacent list? Because I am always looking to support more groups like that. Anyways, if you enjoyed the video, please drop a like and subscribe to the channel as it really helps me out. Thanks again for watching, and I will talk to you all next time. Bye!